Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to a Fresh Stories Book Chats, which is one of my favorite things to do on this podcast. We are here today with somebody I think I've been following online for many years and watching her, I will say, blossom and flourish and transform into a mother and an author has been truly a gift. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we're going to dig into this beautiful memoir that she has coming out. So, Cassidy, who are you?
Hi. Well, first, I'm a mom. I used to be a TV producer. I'm now an author, a debut author. I have my book coming out this year in May 12th, Cosmic Goodness, Surrendering the Shadows to Live in the Light. And I'm just so happy to chat with you. I've been a longtime
Oh,
fan of yours.
thank you, Cassidy. Well, why don't you take us back before we jump into the memoir? Give us a little bit of history of like where your journey started and like why this memoir kind of came to be and your life has this story to tell.
I was the really introspective kid that even when things were happening, there was a part of me that would just lift above my childhood self. And I would think, I'm going to write about this one day. I was journaling from first grade on, and when I read back on those, it floors me how aware and wise I was from so young. And even when I was moving to New York City at 17, there was a part of me that just kept thinking, this is cinematic. You're going to write about it one day. Every little part of this that at times feels challenging is going to be for the bigger story. And that would always help me persevere when things were really tough. There were some very challenging times.
Yeah. So, what were some of those things that you do write about in the memoir that maybe, you know, things that people can relate to as they learn more about you and want to pick up the book?
The number one thing that ignites conversation for me right now at this time in my life is any woman that grew up with an alcoholic father. It's a niche topic, it's relatable. If you ever stepped into a room of Al Anon and have any vernacular that references 12 steps, the second you meet a stranger and they say one of the sayings, you go, wait, did you go to Al Anon? And so that's the thread that really helped me when I needed to process what I went through as a child, as an adult.
Mm, yeah. And while it's niche, it's hidden, right? It's not talked about. There's so much shame in having a parent that's an addict and what that looks like for your life. I'm assuming that maybe knowing your history a little bit, it drove you to be an incredibly determined person.
Perfectionists. All of the Al-Anoners are perfectionists, control freaks,
Yeah.
and we make great television producers because we know how to get everything perfect. And perfect in our household, I have to always treat it as a bad word. If my son does something and I'm like, "Oh, that was so perfect." I'm like, "Oh, it was
Mm,
great."
interesting. That's
Good.
interesting.
I
Yeah.
try not to use that word.
Yeah, and also not just that you're perfect, which makes you a great TV person, but, you know how to put on a good show.
Oh, right? The masking.
Yeah. Yes.
Being able to pretend going into an elementary school that
Yeah.
you're trying not to let everyone know how poor you are. Definitely don't want people to know, like, you're sitting in dare class looking at all the drugs and you're like, "Oh, my dad grows pot," you know?
Uh-huh,
Like, don't
uh-huh.
tell the police officer that your dad grows it, even though it's right there on the screen. There were so many parts of my life I had to learn from really early on, "Oh, you need to hide that. Don't tell anyone that."
Okay, so now I have a question for you, though, because your energy, not just on the internet, but talking to you and having chatted with you and stuff, your energy is the opposite of that. You have a sunlight, like, rays of beams of sunshine come from you, and you're open and authentic and as close to a goddess as they make.
Oh, you're
So,
so sweet.
where did that transformation come in your life from the child that had to watch everything they said and walk on eggshells to a woman that is living out loud?
Seeking the light. I It's so I don't even know where I learned it. I was praying from kindergarten. Like, I remember praying to God. I didn't know, we did not go to church. It does not have to be Christianity.
Right.
It can be any higher power, and I always talked to somebody. I in high school, I would just think of it as guardian angels, angel
Mhm.
guides, but cosmic goodness is there is a force within all of our lives that we can go back and pinpoint where we are divinely protected. And I truly, in my gut, believe that. And when you do believe that and live in that way, it is insane and wild how things transpire that you can't always link in that moment, but later you're like, "Oh my god." And I'm sure you have so
Yep.
many.
Yep.
You
Yep.
have to. We all do because that's part of
Yep.
being human.
But recognizing those moments is part of stepping into your authenticity, right? And you are not gonna reach those milestones if you're not really grounded in what reality is, and that's really hard to do, I would assume, as somebody that came from a chaotic, toxic childhood.
Yeah, and you know what? I was just obsessed with movies like Father of the Bride. I would look at Steve
Yeah.
Martin and this house in the Palisades, and it's so funny, later on in life, I, on the internet, became friends with Kimberly Williams Paisley, who's
Mhm.
obviously
Yep.
Annie in the movie, but I learned how to live in fantasy, and I would just watch movies like Father of the Bride and
Mhm.
just think, "Oh, well, as an adult, I could just have a family life that's like that, pure and wholesome." Like, Steve Martin is not an alcoholic,
No,
verbally and
I
emotionally abusive dad in the movie,
yeah, no, I get
know?
it because we were raised on Nick at Night, and so Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore were like our substitute parents, so I very much understand that. So take us through the memoir. Take what if first of all, what is what you kind of explained it. What is cosmic goodness? Like in the form that you kind of came up with this term. And then take us through the memoir if somebody's curious about picking this book up.
Thank you. So, cosmic goodness came to me during the pandemic. I had just turned 30, and then 3 months later, the pandemic happened, and I solo road trip to Montana, and in a divine twist of fate, there's all of these elements of the book where part of my childhood is I never had a safe home that felt physically and emotionally safe, right? Like, my nervous system could never relax. So, during the pandemic, I'm single, I buy a little cabin in Montana. And part of Montana's tradition is it's not a ranch because I don't raise animals, but it is on 6 acres. You have to name your property. It's like a rite of passage. And I'm 30, the pandemic's happening. And I was like, this is cosmic goodness. This vacation rental has led me to be able to take a step back from a career that I have not been able to leave. And I also liked it because it was my initials, CG. And the more I said cosmic goodness, and for some people, it's kismet, it's fate, it's anything that is happening in your life that is momentum moving you in a direction. Joseph Campbell calls it bliss.
Yep.
And so for me, it's cosmic goodness. And in the book, I started writing my book in 2017. I bought the domain Last Kid Left at Summer Camp in the middle of the night on GoDaddy. And I just was writing because it was the one place, and you're a writer. I mean,
Mhm.
your words are like, if you were to have a wound on your body, your words are a salve.
Okay. Well,
I've
thank you,
read your
Cassie.
words. I have read your words in the middle of the night, seething with anger that I'm up breastfeeding and my partner's asleep.
Yeah.
And I've read your
No,
words and I've like
I'm
had
glad they helped. Thank you. But first of all, thank you. But I want to go back for a second. What is that domain name? Let's dig into this for a second.
Last Kid Left at Summer Camp was always the memoir. That was the feeling of anxiety that creeps in when you're waiting to be picked up and
Uh
no one
huh.
is showing up. And
By
as
the
an
way, I'm
adult,
literally getting dizzy listening to you because I had the same experience. My parents, through their divorce, did, and it traumatized me so much to the point that I leave to pick up my kids a half an hour early every day. So I very much
you're gonna make me cry.
I understand it. Like I'm not like that. It was, and as a teacher, because I taught as my first career, I had students, and I taught at a very Tony private school. I had students whose parents were alcoholics and drug addicts, and that they had to, and we knew, they would show up drunk to school and stuff. And there was times that I remember thinking, I'll drive this kid home, right? Because it's not safe, right, for this kid to wait for the parents. But I was that kid. And I think, by the way, I think you need to write another book because that's an amazing name. Maybe that's the movie.
So, in total transparency, we announced the book. It's called that. And then 3 days later, the Camp Mystic tragedy happens.
Oh,
The Girl Scouts. A
oh
and
no.
I
Right.
mean, it was like I started getting texts. The publisher was like, "This was a very fun, cheeky title that no longer feels fun and cheeky.
Yep.
Rename." So it had to get shelved. And I think looking back,
Someday.
I
Yeah.
the everything that had to do with that is just
Well, because it was supposed to be called
horrifying.
Cosmic Good. I mean, it was that that wasn't supposed to be the name.
It was Last Kid Left at Summer Camp, which was always what it was, and
Right.
then the subtitle had Cosmic Goodness.
Okay.
So, I still love that title, like, it's for a lot of reasons, and I get to talk about that in the book because that feeling of being the last one left can you can take out the anxiety of that and plug in anything in your life that makes you feel your chest get tight,
Yeah.
and as an adult, when you talk about being a teacher and you can now identify with laser eyes which kids
Yep. Yeah.
struggle. And I
But
know people did that for me. I
and there's
remember.
shame, right? And there's shame
Oh,
around that as a kid, right? And how do you explain that as a kid, right? Being 7 years old, being left and saying like, "There's a teacher who wants to go home, and I know they wanna go home, and they're waiting here with me, and where the hell are my parents?" And this was before cell phone, right? This was not like
yep.
you had no way of reaching these people. I mean, I will have to take this off the record, but I very much understand because I lived with huge anxiety for years waiting by the window, right, for people to come home. Where's the car? Why is it 4 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it really fucks you up. So I get
As an adult, I will not go in the car with anybody.
It's
I
my
had a
sister.
friend get drunk in
Yeah,
the Hollywood Hills when we were 20, left the party, forgot I had come with her, and it was like, this is before you could order
right.
cars, and I was, like, walking around the park, I'm like, "Where's my friend?" And I finally was like, "She's not here," and she just was the next morning, I was like, "I got so wasted and, like, forgot we came together," and I walked home. I
Yeah,
walked Hollywood Hills down to West Hollywood in the middle of the night, it was 2010.
I get it. I get it. I mean, it's a feeling of trapped. You're trapped, and that's a
Yeah.
very, very scary feeling. So, okay, so I wanna dig into a little bit with our time left here. What time frame does it take us through? What is kind of the through line here?
7, starts at 7 it really starts at 7. I think that's the age when I had awareness that my dad was ill, like, mentally ill,
Mm,
because alcoholism is a disease.
yep.
It is a disease. He was ill. And it goes all the way up to when my second son was born this past summer. I just turned 36 in November, so to 35. And that's where I think there's so many a Gen Zer will get the chunk of the years in the 20s where I'm
Mhm.
writing about career and ambition and relate. And then I think women that are like wanting to start a family and choosing a partner. When I talk to people now, I still have friends that are single and they're dating. And my advice when they're chatting to me is so different than 5 years ago of what's important, what to look for. Like my mind is exploding with all the things I didn't know. And the biggest thing is my partner is sober for over 7 years. So we have a commonality that
Mhm.
fuels our household in a way that I don't think I would have if I hadn't chosen a sober person because there's a sensitivity there. And so we do have this deep foundation, and it always goes back to 12 steps. If we have a disagreement or an argument, like he goes and does his 12 steps, I do mine. So there is this
Mm,
bond there that's really strong. But now that I have friends that are still wanting to start a family and they're almost 40, I'm like, yeah, you can have a kid 42, 43. It's the world is your oyster still. But when they're talking about the guys that they're dating now, my point of view over how those are not the right men because they're
yeah.
not even showing up for dates on time. I'm like,
Right.
wait until you have a child and you need
Right.
them to show up to an OBGYN appointment.
Right.
Everything has changed my reference point for all of it.
Yeah. Well, it's just a I'm excited to read it. It sounds like a very transformational memoir and very relatable. And I think that that's part of the reason I love your work is that you have the woo, witchy, cosmic side, but you're also really grounded and professional and, you know, like very aware of the world around you. And I think that that's very like it's an interesting combination because not all people can embody both of those so beautifully like you do. And I feel like that's why the memoir will be very relatable to a lot of people. So I'm very excited for it. Where can people pick it up?
It is available wherever books are sold. It's published by Post Hill Press. It's
Okay.
distributed by Simon and Schuster, but cosmicgoodness.com has all the information about where you can go to order it.
I love this so much. Before we let you go, Cassidy, if somebody is listening to this and they want so badly to start dipping their toe into their own cosmic goodness, what would be something they could just start with after listening to this podcast to start opening that light for them?
Take a journal and do one page writing as yourself a year from now. And then you do it again one more time 5 years from now. Because I did that during the pandemic and I wrote about wanting to wake up, make my children breakfast. Like everything that I wrote back then now has happened. But I had a really clear vision for what I wanted that family dynamic to look like. So write as yourself in the future, just one page, and do it every now and then to update it.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to get to chat with you. Thank you so
Anytime,
much.
anytime.